Are we live? Is it working? Good morning, everybody. Saturday, April 30. Gary's first Ask Me Anything. So, got a bunch of questions, and to make sure I give them all some time, not going to have a guest on today, just so I can focus. I thought it'd be weird if like I have someone on and I'm answering questions and they're just sitting there. Like that's not. And then I thought like, well, maybe I'll make them, like if they want to guest today, like I'll make them answer all the questions I'm answering. But some of them are DvsM specific, so it didn't really work. So anyway, it's just going to be me today. So before I get into the questions, though, I thought this would be a good opportunity to do a DvsM 1979 update. So you'll remember last week and the week before I was basically one day behind. The plan is always to be starting a new page Saturday morning. And last Saturday and the Saturday before, I was off. I was off by a matter of like hours, where like I would set up the page with you guys in the morning, and then I would just save it and set it aside and go and finish whatever the previous page was, sometimes for like a few hours. Excuse me. And then circle back and really start earnest work on the new page. Late Saturday, sometimes Sunday, and I was very unhappy about it. And I told you last time, we're not doing that again. Like I'm going to get back on track this week. I got back on track this week. Page 11 is done. Starting page 12 today. That's good. I feel good about that. Also starting page 12. Like that feels good too. And the pile's getting bigger and bigger. I have this is what I've always done for each of the comics so far. As I finish pages, I test print them. If I think they're good enough to move on, I put them in my little sheet protectors, and it allows me to kind of preview like how the page, like how it all is looking and what the two pages side by side look like and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, jazzercise weights are back. You'll see, Mr. Hollywood. All right. Hello, Ronnie. Good to see you. Hello, Frank. Hi, Squatch. So anyway, like, yeah, it's getting to a point where like I can flip some pages in this. It's pretty cool. In terms of how it's going, how I'm feeling about it, good. Like this is an aspect. So in the past, remember, every time I was doing videos, it was pretty much after the fact. I would finish the comic and then do a bunch of videos talking about what it was like to make it in the run-up to release as part of the promotion. The good thing about that is that because I wasn't doing it in the midst of work, they were more polished and a little more edited, and I could put in little things, and they were more like crafted videos, unlike these, which are just vloggy. The downside, and something I brought up before, is I'm doing these videos once the comic is either done or very close to done, when you're full of this feeling of accomplishment, and I did it, and this is great, I'm excited for you to read it, and it all worked out. And it was leaving out the reality of the process, which goes on for a year or more of daily struggle, trying to like just keep your nose to the grindstone and work, draw. And like any artist, you're never completely satisfied with what you're doing. And, you're not sure. It's like, is this working? And I don't know. And how is this going to be? And I'm tired and I'm behind and I'm frustrated by my time limitations. I'm frustrated by my talent limitations. I'm frustrated by my tool limitations. I'm, just like the agony of creation. That gets left out. So the reason I'm saying all this, it's like, how's the comic going? If it seems like a weird lukewarm response, it's because I'm in the marathon right now. And it doesn't feel like I'm not feeling elation. I'm feeling kind of just, all right, another page, another page. In addition, there's some challenging things to draw in this one. And with every DvsM, I try to push myself a little bit farther to not only better realize my vision, but to push my ability a little bit farther, to show off a little bit more. And now, obviously, none of these are, and no one panel is a gorgeous final drawing. Like, I'm not spending a week on a panel. I'm spending a week on maybe 6 panels. So, it's never as developed and finished and polished and detailed and elaborate as it would be if it was just like a one-off, like a print or something. But I try to push it as far as I can within the time constraint. And the analogy, I would say, like, right now, it feels like you're riding a bike as fast as you can along the edge of the rim of the Grand Canyon. So it's just you're not comfortable. Like, you're not comfortable. That's how I feel drawing DvsM right now. Every day, I'm like, I did it. I think it looks good, but man, like, this pace is not 100% comfortable. So that's where I'm at. So we'll talk a little bit more about DvsM 1979 in the Q&A. The Q&A roughly is going to be, I got a lot of comic-related questions, a lot of DvsM-related questions, but then I also got a lot of, like, ridiculous questions. And I'll probably open with the ridiculous ones, get those out of the way, and then we'll close with comic stuff, and there's some 1979 stuff in there. But before we do that, I'm going to set up page 12. So bear with me as I'm not looking at the camera. Let's see here, what do we got here? Art and production isn't comfortable or fun. It can often be satisfying. No, I agree. And I think, though, it's more satisfying after the fact. But I am reminded of an interview I saw with Barry Windsor Smith. It was around the time I reviewed Monsters, the indie review show. And the interviewer asked him something, I don't remember exactly what the question was, but it was something like, is it fun to make comics? And he seemed almost offended by the question. He was like, fun? No. And he said in so many words, if you're having fun making comics, you're not making good comics, And well, of course, you can't be totally absolute, make a sweeping thing like a statement like that. I got it. I got what he meant. Like, I think if you're really trying to stretch within whatever your constraints are, it's going to be an uncomfortable feeling, and so it would be weird to say, like, it's a blast, I'm having a ball, it is great, like, and this is the most fun I've had anywhere. Like, that's maybe you're like that. I'm not like that. And it's kind of like going to the gym. You feel good about it. You're glad you did it. It's for the best. You're going to do it again. But you wouldn't say, like, oh, I love it. I have so much fun. I'm excited to go. Like, it's not like that. That's kind of, to me, my experience, it's a little bit what the comic process is like. And right now, trying to do as good as I can, it's a little bit like going to the gym and, like, I need to start upping my weight. I need to start upping my reps. And it's kind of fucking miserable, but you feel good about it in a way. Like, you're like, I'm glad I did that, and that's good, and it's good for me, and it's going to pay off. But it's, fun is not exactly the right word. Okay, so page 12, again, looking at my cheat sheet. which you've seen before. It's my little crib sheet of all my pages, the orientations. It's a 5-panel page. It's equally divided vertically. Top panel is 1 wide all the way across, and then 2 and 2. So as described last time, I'll probably describe it 30, 50 more times, who knows, but before this comic is done. I go into all my, I have a huge pile of done DvsM pages at this point, from 75, from 97, and now a pile from 79, looking for either that layout or something close enough where I can tweak it and make it what I need. So that's what I've opened a page that's near enough. The most important first step, save as, new page. You do not want to make changes. Start building a new page on an existing page. I've done it before. It always creates a moment of panic, terror. Okay. Page 12. Now, unlocking all my layers. I'm not showing you all this because I don't want you to see the page I'm using. I don't share my screen usually anyway, but deleting all the art that was on it. I know this is very exciting for you guys. I'm almost done. Now, this is always a nice little, it makes me feel good, this part. Going in and updating the page number. That's the first little, feels like progress, page 12. Does anybody know, how about one of the real comic geeks in here? Squatch, why don't you, rather than heckling, why don't you make yourself useful? Why don't comics typically have page numbers? I've always found that a little weird. I number all the DvsM books are numbered, the pages. And I've noticed that that's kind of not the norm. Is there a reason? What is the thinking? Like, I don't, there must be a thing, because why don't they all? Some do it, but it usually seems like not. I would love that, Squatch. In fact, I've been meaning, might as well talk about it now. So Squatch is a talented artist. He did, after 75, he made this awesome, I keep this right here to look at all the time, a canvas for 75. I love it. Squatch, I've been meaning to talk to you about commissioning you to do one. I want one for 97. I want same size, you know, so I can have them side by side. And eventually I'd like one for every DvsM I do. So we need to talk about this. Think of a price. Don't do it for, I don't want a gift canvas. I want to pay you. So think about a price. Okay, let's see. I'm going to change the orientation of some panels to get it to match what I'm trying to do. My panels, and now there's like a little illustrator thing I have to do to finish that. And I think I am done. There we go. Set up. Lock that layer. Now I'm ready to start dropping in dialogue, which is now the first thing. No, it's madness. Madness. I gotta pay you, man. You deserve to be paid. It's no. You think of a price. That's not an acceptable answer. Think of a price. And then yeah, it's it's painful. It's a birth is a painful process. So there you go. So the first thing I do, I don't think this was always the case. It was early in my process of a new page, but now I've made it the first thing because it's more efficient for me. The first thing I do is I go into my Excel document that has all my dialogue. It's broken down by page and panel. And I drop my dialogue in. After I've set up like my panels, the first thing I do is drop my dialogue because basically I'm going to have to figure out how to draw things in relation to dialogue bubbles. And I've made my life difficult in the past where I've spent a lot of time drawing something very meticulously, and then dropped in a great big dialogue bubble, and half that shit I didn't have to draw. So that is like, that's wasted time. Like it's not only am I, it's not like, oh, the art. So I mean, it's a little annoying that you're covering up art that you made, but more importantly, it's annoying that you spent all that time drawing something that you didn't need to draw. So now I do dialogue first, and I kind of like shape it into a block so you get a sense of like maybe where it'll be in the panel. So I know like, what do I not need to draw once I start, or where do I need to make room, or, what side of a panel, do I need something or whatever, it helps me figure out my drawing process. Let's see here. And because I am a geek with a past life and a white collar job, I keep myself very organized with DvsM with a lot of Excel documents, which will come up again later with one of the questions with photo reference. But yeah, the dialogue is all, obviously it originates in a script. Copying dialogue from my Excel and pasting it into my page. Starts with a script, but then the next thing I do is I break down. I have an Excel spreadsheet of every panel in the comic, and each line is a panel. The panels are numbered in my head, so I start a page. I find page 12 on my document. I know like this is 5-panel page, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on page 12. I'm copying dialogue and pasting it in. It keeps me organized. I'm sure Josh is going through this right now. I'm assuming he has a very similar process. The particulars might be different, but I'm sure he's got something like that to keep it straight. Picking the right font, because of course it pastes in as like an Excel font. Like I use the font of DvsM Canted Comic, if you want to go find it. Which is okay. I'm fine with it. I can't change it now because I've done 2 books with it already. I'm not like dying to change it, but I don't know. I'm sure there's a better version out there. These past few pages have two characters. It's a heated conversation, and it's now kind of boiling over into a little bit of a full-blown argument, which is fun to write, fun to illustrate. There are fun challenges with the dialogue bubbles, like how to show people interrupting, people cutting people off, stuff like that. But also more dialogue than I usually have in a DvsM, because people are going back and forth and they're a little agitated. 97 had a lot of dialogue, but this is like a sequence of a few pages where two very intelligent people are going back and forth, and so it's kind of fun. I'm not looking at the chat window right now, so I will in a second see if I'm missing anything. Okay, this is weird. I had that wrong. It's a 4-panel page. Wide, 2 side by side, wide. I was looking at my sheet here and it's like, where's my 5th panel? There's no 5th panel already. I gotta correct that. That's good. One thing I found, I'm happy about that, just because I'm finding I don't love drawing small. I don't think I'm as good at it. I don't have as much fun with it. My favorite panels to draw are big ones, or if not, even if it's not big, a close-up of someone's hand, close-up of someone's face, close-up of some like gore or carnage or a dinosaur or an alien or something like that. Like I like to kind of sit and like have fun, like fleshing. What I had in this previous page, it's again 2 people talking in a room. One person's in the distance, like one end of the room, and the camera is more focused on the person who's closer. So the person in the distance is very small in the frame. I hate drawing that. I hate just like suggesting like his eyes are sort of here and his mouth's here. I don't, it's just, I think what it is, it's very hard when you're, at least for me, when you're drawing small, to have a little panache, to have a little flair, to do like something kind of cool, and like to have fun with line quality, or to have fun with like shadow or anything like that. Like you kind of have to reduce to like something very simple so it's resolvable. And I don't like it. If it was, now the downside of that is, sorry, I'm redoing my panels here. The downside of that is DvsMs, which are long to begin with, end up longer because I don't like small panels. Like as I've talked about before, my kind of default orientation for a DvsM page is 2, 2, 2. So even that's the smallest panel is, a 1/6 of a page, which is not that small. Like you see other comics where they're real small, and I've done smaller than that, but The 222 is about as small as I like to do. And so I tend to sometimes go bigger, like with this page, I've got 4 panels, 2 of them pretty big. And while that's great for the drawing, and I think great for the drama and great for, like, you know, pacing and stuff, it's not great for length. It makes your book long because you're not cramming stuff into a page. Say hello, Pete. Okay, now we're set up. Now the dialogue is in. Now I am pretty much, I need to pull in some of my reference material, but otherwise I'm ready to start drawing. I'm not going to pull in the reference material now, so we're going to do some Q&A. Let's see here. At what point do you think of sound effects while writing or drawing? Oh, that's a cool question. It's a mix, honestly. Like, for example, DvsM 1997 opens with sound effects. The first thing you see before you even see a picture, you just see a white field with some sound effects. And like part of like the kind of early slow tease is like what is making that noise? And you start, you know, turning pages to see like what's making that sound. That's something that was 100% in the script. And spelled, like the onomatopoeia was spelled the same way. It was all like, that's from the script. On the other hand, I have on the page I just finished, one of the main characters is shutting off a old Kodak slide projector. And they're kind of doing it like sort of, she's pissed off, and yeah, I wanted to imply there's a little bit of like a bang, like she's shutting it off. And I didn't write any of that in the script. I wrote that that's what happens in the script, but I didn't come up with like, what does that sound like? So I played with, like, while I was drawing the page, just different, like writing out different onomatopoeias to see like what sounds right. So it depends. It depends. And then like, this isn't really a spoiler, but there's some things where now there's sort of a canon sound effect for DvsM. Like the alien ray guns have a sound. I think it's like, I'd have to go, but I think it's like F and like lots of Z's and then a T, you know, like it's this kind of, it's an electric kind of a discharge sound. If I've set like a precedent, that's what this thing sounds like, then it's always going to sound like that in a DvsM. So if and when there's some ray gun action in 79, it'll be spelled out the same way it was in 97, the same way it was in 75. Yeah, so it depends. It depends. What also varies is whether I do, so obviously I'm using a font for dialogue, Canted Comic, like I said. When it comes to the sound effects, sometimes I use a font, and sometimes I do that by hand. It depends, and to me that depends, this is like the method to my madness, it depends on what the sound effect is. If it's something, the rough breakdown in my head is if it's something mechanical sounding, if it's something man-made, like something like, for example, like in 97, like Old Man in Black hitting the brakes of the car, you know, and the sound of that ka-thump, you know, of like the old-timey brake going in. Like that's something that I'd probably use like a font, because in the way my mind works, it's mechanical sounding, it's man-made sounding, it's not an organic sound, so it could be more like a little more like tight. But if I'm doing a sound effect for like a body hitting the floor, or an alien gurgling after it got shot in the head, or like, you know, stuff like that, like something that's more, a dinosaur making a noise, like, you know, this stuff that's more organic, that stuff. Or one I remember in 75, an alien running across a wet tile floor. Like, that's stuff that I might want to do by hand, because again, like, my logic is like, well, it's not a clean, it's a softer sound, a wetter sound, an organic sound. It's not like a like fonty sound. I don't know. And I'm not always like, if you go through DvsMs, I'm not always religious about that. You'll probably find examples of mechanical sounds I did by hand or organic sounds I did with font. But that's usually where my head goes. What's your approach to staying on schedule? How do you go about staying disciplined? Page a week. Page a week, come hell or high water. And because of my makeup, I don't know if it's just the way I am. I don't know if it's because I came out of Catholic school. Like, I don't know what it is. Like, I hate myself if I miss it. You know, like, I'm very unhappy. Even like these past couple of weeks where I've been a few hours behind, like, I'm not happy about it. I'm pissed. Like, I don't like being behind. Page a week is the only rule with DvsM. Everything else I don't care about. Like, you know, the only thing that's important is, am I turning out a page a week? And again, I don't know why I'm just always, it feels like a workout analogy with me. Like, I'm like, you know, clearly I'm not like this like bodybuilder gym rat, but it's the best comparison I can think of. It's, you know, you can't just be doing it when you feel like it. Like, you have to feel, can't be a part of it. Like, look, if you have a headache or something, like, I'm not going to sit there and try and draw. And I also know just from experience, like, there's a point when I'm drawing where I'm doing more harm than good, and I'm just going to have to be correcting shit the next day. Like, I know this is not going to work. So there is a point where it's like, there's like, you don't always push. It's not like, look, you're drawing. I don't care what's going on with you. You're drawing. Like, you know, sometimes it's not going to happen. But there is, I feel like that's unusual and kind of rare. I think usually there's a big middle ground where you may not be into it. You may not feel like it. You might much rather sit and watch a movie or play a video game or, you know, do any other thing in the world. But you could work. You could be working, you could be drawing. And I think that's sort of the discipline, is realizing, like, another thing I say a lot is, like, there's a level of parenting you have to do to yourself. Like, you have to, you know, be able to sort out, like, when do you really need to take a break and when are you just sort of being lazy? Because you know that better than anyone. It's hard for anyone else to guess that. Let's see here. Today is the only day he's staying disciplined. Squatch, we're gonna get to you in the Q&A for sure. Let's see here. What torturous routine can you share? Well, that was it. Basically, just, and I have to admit, like, of course, there's some element of like free time, you know, where I'm doing something other than drawing. Just because you have to stay sane and you got to take care of yourself, and there has to be balance in your life. I do have a day job, and while ideally I would do day job and come home and just draw until I went to bed, I mean, you know, you have to make some time. But usually, for the most part, it's, if I could be drawing, I should probably draw. Here we go, Mr. Hollywood. We're going to know more about their home planet. This is me. So as people may or may not know, so I'm doing DvsM number 3 right now, basically. It's a 6-part series. They are very planned out. I know what each one is about. I know the characters. I know the beats. While I might not have a finished script yet, I know, like, I have a good solid outline that is like, that's going to be the story for each one. Because this isn't just like me coming them up. This isn't like the Star Wars approach where you make it up as you go. This is like, I have an arc. There is actually a master plan here, okay? So the reason I'm pausing on this is like, it's always a thing of like, how much do I want to talk about where this is going? I'll just answer this very simply. Are we going to know more about their home planet, the aliens' home planet? Yes. That's all I'm saying for now. Someday. Some future installment. I wish, see, this is part because I've been drawing. I've been wanting to watch Moon Knight. I haven't seen an episode yet. Is it done now? Can I sit and watch the whole thing all the way through? All right, let's do some Q&A. Let's get this out, because once I get through Q&A, then I can start drawing for the day. If anyone has any questions, they can toss them into the chat. I will look at the chat periodically to see if there's new questions, but basically I have them all printed out. This is something I wanted to do. I wanted to actually paste in the questions so people know what I'm answering. And I'm gonna actually, let's see here. There we go. Sorry, I'm getting organized here. Page 12, guys. It's funny, like I'm not always going to feel this way. I'm not going to feel this way in a few months, but at least right now, feels like it's going fast. Like, I mean, it's page a week, but I mean, I don't feel like I've been at it for 12 weeks. So that's good. I want to try and hold on to that feeling because I know by the time I'm on like page 30, page 40, like, you know, like that, I'm not going to feel like, oh, I just started. Like, I remember how it felt toward the end of 97, which was 59 pages, where I felt like I'd been drawing 97 for 14 years. Like it was tough. It was grueling. Okay. This is going to be Q1. Who wants to guess who asked this fucking shit? Who? Post in the comments who asked this. I don't even need to answer this. I bet the public can answer this. Squatch, I don't know if you noticed the name of this. I'm always working, Squatch. And even if I'm talking, even if I'm being Mr. Hollywood, like talking to the camera, talking to someone, I have a thing open. I have my stuff here spread out. Just because I'm not sharing my screen doesn't mean I'm not working. And I'm not going to share my screen. Because first of all, I don't do that. I avoid spoilers. And second, even if I was inclined to share spoilers, DvsM 79 is like months and months. So it's too early to be talking a lot about what it's about and showing pages. So like, no. Cards close to my chest. Always working, though. Always working. I'm glad we got that out of the way. I'm glad we settled that. I'll never have to talk about that again. So let's go on. Like I said, we're going to open with questions that have nothing to do with comics. These are the ones I categorize as just Gary questions. What is your favorite nostalgic scent? I had a few. Orange blossoms. I don't know if that's a thing anywhere else, but in Arizona, there's a lot of orange trees. In the summer, they flower. It's a really distinct smell. Brings me back to being a kid. Another one, pipe tobacco, pipe smoke. Both my Granddad's smoked pipes. And I love the smell. I own a bunch of pipes. And I rarely smoke them because I'm kind of a health, I wouldn't say, I don't know, maybe I am a health nut. Some people would certainly call me a health nut. I don't really think of myself that way, but kind of to the point where it's like I'm not going to sit and regularly smoke. But I do have some pipes and pipe tobacco because every once in a while I like the smell. And this is hard to explain, but it was probably the first thing I thought of when I saw this question. So I'm an old-time video game nerd. I got a Nintendo back in the 80s, changed my life. I loved it so much. And one of the things that was just one of my personal pleasures was sniffing the instruction manuals for video games. Did anyone else do this? Was this a thing? Do you remember when there was paper, guys? Remember when you would read things on paper? Anyway, like my Legend of Zelda manual, my Phantasy Star manual, like it had a distinct, weird, probably cancer-causing ink odor to it. And that reminds me, someone's got some example. Don't you probably remember how some comic smells or some toy smells or something, but like that, I thought of those things. Let's see here. Question number 3. Any cartoon shows you have serious respect for in terms of writing, animation, etc.? I didn't think too deeply on this. A lot of these I didn't think too deeply because I knew I would sit and like come up with new and revised answers indefinitely. My first reaction was Samurai Jack. I just loved it. Is it like Gendy Tartakovsky or something? He has kind of a crazy name. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But I loved Samurai Jack. It's something he wrote, did in his style. I love Taku. I love, I just love how it looks. I love how the motion goes. I love the character designs. The writing is very Kung Fu, that series, which was fine. Like I loved Kung Fu. I thought it was good. I can think of a lot more. The only other thing I'd mention is a year or two ago, I really got interested in Eastern Bloc animation because it was so weird and different from anything I was familiar with. And I saw a Hungarian feature-length animated movie about a year ago. I think it's called The Son of the White Mare. Mare, M-A-R-E. I would encourage you to seek it out, especially if you're in animation, especially if you're into art or design. I think it's from the early 80s or something. I loved it. I loved how it looked. It's very folklore. I think it is probably based on an old fairy tale or something. I love how it looks. I love the animation. I love the weird fairy tale logic of it, the kind of but I especially really liked how it looked. It was just a style that I didn't feel like you see much, which I think is kind of consistent with the sort of surreal and weird Central European or Eastern European animation styles. It was really neat. So check that out. Son of the White Mare. So here was, I thought, a really powerful and interesting and thoughtful question. This is what happens when you open up yourself to questions. Would you rather have always visible farts or always have a visible booger on your nose? Really? Honestly, am I not thinking about this right? This seems like an obvious, like, of course, visible farts. Of course. As opposed to an always visible booger on your nose? Like, I don't know, that seems easy to me. Like, visible farts. I can control myself. I have sphincter control. I don't know about you clowns. I can manage this problem of visible farts. I can't manage a always visible booger. So, I don't know. Let's see here. I had a couple music questions. Let's sort my windows out a little more efficiently here. Where are we on? 5? Q5? Yes. This is one of, I think, a couple of music questions. Most embarrassing music you own or have on a playlist? I could go on and on. I'm very open-minded about music. I think the first one that came to mind is like, you know, I like Lana Del Rey. I'm sorry. I don't know what to tell you. Like I'm not, you know. So there's a fair amount of her stuff on my iTunes. Other than that, I think, like, I'm a big fan. I think I'm a very nostalgic person by nature. I like to immerse myself in that once in a while, and that goes for my music too. I have playlists that are, it's music strictly to take me back to a certain place or era of my life or whatever. So I have, you know, I came of age. Not even, I actually, I don't know, when is coming of age? What is the age where you've come of age? I don't know. I was a kid in like the late 70s and early 80s. So I have like playlists that are a lot of, you know, it's a lot of stuff that I couldn't even tell you I like. It's just nostalgic for me. So there's probably some Tears for Fears in there, or Men at Work, or I don't know. I know there's some Hall & Oates. There's definitely some Hall & Oates in there. So like, you know, I don't know, that stuff would probably count. But then there's, and that stuff, like I say, I don't even know if I could say that I love it. It's just nostalgic for me. And that's why it's on my list. There are things though that I'm unapologetically like, I love, like, you know, Journey fucking rocks, man. The Bee Gees are awesome. You know, like, yeah. So I don't know. It depends what you could. But in terms of like my first response, Lana Del Rey. I've got a bunch of Lana Del Rey, and I don't seem like the type that would have a bunch of Lana Del Rey, but I don't know. I love it. It's great. Anyway, next question. Let's see here. Are we on? Are we in 6? Yes, Q6. What's on my current playlist? Right now I'm listening to a lot, as anyone who knows, Josh and I have talked about a lot. I've been listening to a lot of Wet Leg's first album. I've been listening to Patrick Watson's latest album. I'm really into right now Ways Blood, which it's a contemporary band, but it sounds super 70s. Like when I first heard it, I thought like, this is some weird Joni Mitchell stuff or something that I've never heard. Like it has that sound to it, which is kind of I think why I like it. I think I'm listening to the Avett Brothers a little bit. I'm listening to Orville Peck a little bit. It's a little all over the place. Usually though, when I'm drawing, it's a lot of soundtrack stuff because it's easier for me to concentrate. So it might be like the Blade Runner 2049 soundtrack or something while I'm drawing. This is a terrible take. Journey is so boring. Oh, no. Incorrect. Just incorrect. I don't know how else to say it. Let's see. This was a hard question that I'm not qualified to answer, but I'll give it a shot. Give us an art project for kids. Okay. Kind of depends on the kid, kind of depends on the age. And kind of depends like what kind of how high strung a parent you are. Like, for example, my parents, I wasn't allowed to have Tinker Toys because we'd poke our eye out. Like, that was the thought. We had fucking Lincoln Logs, which is boring AF. Like, that is like, I wanted Tinker Toys. Whatever, what can you do? So I don't know. Some people are like, no, I can't give the kid glue, or I can't give the kid scissors, or they can't have this, or they can't have that, whatever. I don't know. And I don't know how old. For me, one of my favorite things as a kid was paper crafts. I liked having construction paper and weird art papers, weird like handmade papers, some safety scissors, some Elmer's glue, or some Scotch tape. You can make anything. You can make cards, you can make animals or people, you can make little dioramas. Like, to me, that's the go-to. It's fairly safe. You're not really going to ruin anything. You're not going to destroy a carpet or a floor, especially if you limit them to like Scotch tape as opposed to glue. Glue can get anywhere depending on the kid. And maybe you don't want to do that. I'd say paper crafts, you know. Wow, just hammering on Journey today. I don't know how I feel about that. Let's see here. Okay, next question. Please explain why you continue to use Hotmail and don't even forward to Gmail like those of us with a normal level of shame about our 20-year-old email accounts. And this question was seconded by a few people when I shared it. They wanted to know why I still have a Hotmail. And I can't even imagine why anyone cares. Why does this matter? Why does this matter? I'm not making you use Hotmail. Why does it matter if I use Hotmail? Let me tell you something. And I hate to break this to you, all you Gmail pushers. Gmail is fucking depressing. Like, I feel like I'm doing data entry when I'm in Gmail. It's the most like sterile, bland, boring, like weird, like, believe it or not, Outlook has just sort of a nicer appearance, and like I like how it's laid out. It makes more sense to me. Gmail, I feel like I'm logging something in some prison database. It's just fucking boring and depressing. It's like Orwellian. Ugh. Forward to Gmail, why? How my Gmail forward to Hotmail? Give me a fucking break. Anyway, in my opinion. Let's say her. Favorite character in Big Mouth? Never seen an episode. I don't know. And I've had lots of people tell me I should be watching it. I'm sorry. I don't know anything about Big Mouth. And please, someone is tempted to do it right now. Please refrain from telling me in the comments, you need to watch Big Mouth. I'm drawing a comic, guys. I watch hardly anything. I don't have time. Do you know how much content is out there? I saw, I'm not going to watch your show. Maybe someday. I don't know. But it's not on. If you tell me, like, add Big Mouth to the list, all right, I will. The list is like 16 shows deep at this point, okay? I may not get to it. So we'll see. We'll see how climate change goes. And if there's even a TV by the time I get to watch Big Mouth. But let's see here. Ideal fast food Frankenstein meal. So this was explained as you can cobble together like the perfect fast food meal from multiple places. What would you want? Like your favorite things. Okay. Main course, McDonald's sausage McMuffin with egg. Like that is the ultimate of fast food entrees. All right. Sausage McMuffin with egg. I think next to that, I would like 2 regular tacos from Jack in the Box. And even though we've got tacos covered with the Jack in the Box tacos, I also want to add, even though now it's retired, and I don't understand why, because it would be real easy for them to make, a double-decker taco from Taco Bell. I love the double-decker taco. They got rid of it. I have no idea why. It's a crispy taco, if you've never had it. Inside, like a soft taco tortilla with a spread with refried beans. They have all that shit there. It'd be the easiest thing in the world to make. And for some reason, they're not doing it anymore. It was my favorite thing on the menu. I have no reason to go to Taco Bell. I don't care if you bring back Mexican pizza. Mexican pizza is trash, man. That's such stoner shit. I don't understand this. Tell me you're a stoner without saying you're a stoner. Oh my God, they're bringing back Mexican pizza. Anyway, let's see here. So where? Oh, I would like some Arby's curly fries. I think I would like an apple pie from McDonald's for dessert. And if I'm going to go all out, because this probably is going to be my last meal. I mean, this will kill you if you eat all this stuff. I think I would like a Butterfinger or an Oreo Blizzard, one of those two. I think that would be nice. So that would be. I'm sorry. Hashtag not all stoners. I don't know. Look, it's just Mexican pizza. I don't know. I don't get it. Whatever. You know what? It makes more sense to me, though, than the McRib. The McRib makes no sense to me. Don't. That's the weirdest. Pass. Anyway. All right. Let's see here. Where are we at? Q11. We're just burning through these. Favorite video game of all time? Yes, I'm a big gamer. I love video games. It's been a huge part of my life. I used to write reviews of video games for a meager living, but for a living. This is tough. It's like asking like your favorite anything, but my gut is like Legend of Zelda for the original Nintendo. It's probably like my all-time favorite. But I would, if I had to pick like a second, then it becomes like a 6-way tie. Like, I don't know, Street Fighter. I love Street Fighter 2, like the original Street Fighter 2. I loved Ultima 6, which is a computer role-playing game. Maybe Castlevania Symphony of the Night. I don't know. I have to say, it's early to say this. You shouldn't say it this soon because it needs to settle. Elden Ring would be a strong contender. I know some of you have probably heard buzz about Elden Ring. It's deserved. Elden Ring is strong. It's definitely, in my opinion, the best of all those like Soulsborne games, like Dark Souls, Demon Souls, Bloodborne, Sekiro, all that stuff. I like Elden Ring the best. I liked all of those different levels, but Elden Ring I think is the best of the lot. This is another brutal thing, but I'm trying not to think about it too hard. I'll just say Empire Strikes Back, Silence of the Lambs, and maybe like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Maybe, I don't know, but definitely those first two. The third is like I'd have to think about that. But Silence of the Lambs and Empire Strikes Back, I think no matter what day you caught me on, no matter when you asked me, I would name those two for sure. The thing would be up there. Wolfenstein is, you know what, that would be a contender. I have a lot of really happy memories of Wolfenstein, the original Wolfenstein. Not the original, which was like a 2D one, but the first 3D one is pretty great. Back to the Future is a great movie. I love Back to the Future. The Thing is a masterpiece. Like, it's up there. It's definitely up there. Okay, now we are transitioning to the comic related questions. What is DvsM 1979 about, and when will it come out? Okay, so obviously I'm no big surprise. I'm going to be pretty slippery about this because spoilers. And it's very early in the process for me to be talking a lot about what it's about, and like it will ramp up as we get closer and closer to launch. This is what I can tell you about it right now. Obviously, it's set in 1979. No big surprise. Which is, just to recap, and everyone can do the math, but just to show, it's DvsM hops around in the timeline, obviously. The last installment was 97. Now we're going back closer to the first installment, 75. This is early in the continuity. 75 was focused on Men in Black. 97 was focused on eyewitnesses. 79 is focused on scientists in a top secret facility. They are working the problem of basically, and this doesn't really spoil too much. The war with the aliens is going poorly, and there's a lot of desperate top secret work on solutions, how to somehow turn this thing around. And we're looking at one of these facilities. The only other thing I'll reveal at this time about it, most of the characters are scientist types. They're like PhDs. The only other thing I would say, and this was one of the early like generative ideas of what 79 would be about. One of my thoughts when I was watching when I read Jurassic Park and saw Jurassic Park, it occurred to me that there's a lot of story there not being told. And the story not being told is to go from concept of like, maybe we could make a dinosaur, to making a dinosaur. There would have been a lot of imperfect, failed, sad, failed attempts in between A and B. And I thought there's a story in there. You could do some kind of a story in there. That's all I'm going to say. That's enough of what 79 is about. We'll hear more about it as time goes on. Is the comic series part of the government's disclosure of the existence of ETs on Earth? Yes. Will we be going back before 75? No, there won't be an installment pre-75. 75 is the beginning of this story. There will be references to things that happened prior to 75. Like you'll get a slightly clearer picture of like maybe what was going on before. And someday I'll probably do a character analysis video on George, aka Old Man in Black from 75, which his whole backstory would have been like way before the events of 75. Like he would have been a Roswell era Men in Black. So a little bit of that, but basically, no, 75 is the beginning. And while we're hopping around in the timeline now, going forward, we're never going to go before 75. Let's say, no silence. It is absolutely. I have been commissioned by the government to release disinformation about extraterrestrials and the highly classified dinosaur-Martian war. Let's see here. Oh, and when will it be out? I'm not going to commit to that yet. I've told, beyond what I've already said, I'm really, really pushing to finish drawing at least the very end of this year. We'll see how it goes. So barring weirdness, life happening, I think you can very confidently expect to be able to purchase DvsM 1979 somewhere in the range of the very end of this year or in Q1 of 2023. It'll be somewhere in there, but I'm not gonna announce a date. It's too early, and I think I'm pretty good. Like in the past months, I've been pretty good about knowing when. But there's just too much time, too much drawing, too much. Anything could happen. I don't know. Like I could get laid off work. I could get in a car wreck. I could someone I know could get in a car. There's too many variables. But right now, I'm kind of shooting for like around the end of the year or very early next year. It'll be on sale. So. Let's see here. Already I'd set to certain UFO sign. That was a coincidence. There is a significance to the dates. It has nothing to do with UFO stuff. But I needed a craft in 97. And I usually, we're going to come back to this, I consult all the UFO lore and, all that stuff to try and I try to reference that and involve that wherever I can. And it was just too perfect. 97 is, all the DvsMs so far are set in Arizona. 97 was when the Phoenix Lights was happening. I needed a craft. It's going to be the Phoenix Lights ship or of that type, of that model. It's probably not the exact same one, but yeah, so that just lucked out. If that hadn't been the year the Phoenix Lights thing happened, I don't know. I might have picked something different. I don't know. But it just seemed perfect to we'll just do that same one. We'll just imagine this. We're going to wrap up all the mythology into one thing. So. Okay. This is a fun thing, an announcement I can make. Where are we at? 14? Will you be at Phoenix Fan Fusion? So I wasn't going to be. I was taking the year off. Busy drawing. It's a huge time. It's a time suck to go to a con, and I'm in production mode. And yeah, if you watched last time I went to a con before the plague, I was a little con disillusioned. I wasn't sure if I wanted to do them anymore. I felt like at least the Phoenix Con is just not the crowd for an indie. It's not, it's slowly morphing into baby San Diego Comic-Con, where it's more about movies and guests to get your photo taken with, and it's not, to me, not an ideal venue for an indie trying to sell something other than fan art of Iron Man or Wonder Woman in a thong or horse shit like that. If you have your own weird property that you're trying to sell, the crowd that's showing up for what they're putting on isn't the most interested in that. They want to get a toy, they want to get a t-shirt, they want to get their picture taken with Jeff Goldblum. So I was kind of I don't know if I need this anymore. Maybe I want to concentrate on smaller cons or something. So I wasn't going to do it. Plus I was drawing. But then the guys from the Making Comics podcast, Keith and Scott, they're going to be tabling together in Artist Alley. Two great creators. I encourage you to check out their podcast. And they reached out to me and they're like, "Hey, are you going to be, are you going to be tabling this year?" And I said no for all the reasons I gave. They're like, "Come sit at our table. Sell some books at our table." And that becomes a little more, makes more financial sense. But even then I was like, well, I'm still drawing. I was like, I could do maybe a day. Maybe I'll show up for a day. And they're like, all right. So Saturday, Phoenix Fan Fusion, I will be at Artist Alley. I will be selling DvsM 75 and 97, signing copies, I will be there. So that'll be cool. More info to come. If you're local, come by and see me. It'd be cool. But yes, I will be for one day and one day only at Phoenix Fan Fusion this year. Okay. What question are we on, guys? 14? Oh, no, 15. Do you shoot all your reference? What's your process for using reference? Yes. Whenever I can, I like to create my own reference. I'm not a fan of going to Google and finding something that will sort of work and using that. I like to make all. Some of it is just, you know, everyone draws their line about what they feel good about or not good about in a different place. I think there is something kind of old school and silly about me that is a little like, I don't love using reference, but I justify it if I made the reference. It's stupid. Again, it's arbitrarily drawing the line. But I don't always use it. It depends. If it's a main character, if it's a character you're going to see close up, if there's a lot of like what I do in DvsM, a lot of face acting and hand acting and body language and stuff like that, I like to work with a model. I like to try and, you know, get something like a real touchstone to work from when I'm drawing. If it's some background character or like a character you're only seeing 2 or 3 times, I'll like freehand it. Or in some cases, like in 97, there were some soldiers here and there in the background. I had just like action figures I would pose and use this like my, basically an art dummy just to kind of do it. But my basic process is, and this is something, by the way, I'm going to try and go through this a little quick because it's a big topic. It's something I could talk a lot about. And it's something I've always intended to do a longer video on because I really enjoy it and I think it's an important part of the process. And I feel like almost everyone could benefit from working from good reference and learning how to work with models. But basically, I do my thumbnails. Once I'm pretty settled on what each panel will be, now I can make a list of, so character A, these are all the panels character A is in, and this is all the things they're doing in those panels. Character B, I have a list. Character C, I have a list. And then what I do typically is once in a while, once in a blue moon, I've actually hired a life drawing model. But usually what I do is I look at my friends list and see like who kind of has the right look for the way I picture this character. And say like, hey, if you sit down for a couple hours with me for some photos, I'll take you to lunch. And I'll give you a credit in the book and, you know, that kind of thing. So it's usually what I've done. And then, so I show up with my list and some kind of place where people can feel safe usually and just work through it. I try to make them comfortable, try to work fast. I try to get some basic pictures too, of just front and profile, like just so I have some basic references of what they look like. And we just work through it, like, you know, just one by one. Sometimes it takes a couple hours. Other times it's not nearly that formal. Sometimes I just need a handful of pictures because someone's just in a handful of panels. And it's very casual. And I don't even need a lot. I know I'm going to do a lot of freehanding. So I just want something to look at. Other times I really want it dialed in, especially if, again, it's a major character and I really want to get the little details. Not that I'm always drawing it exactly. I'm usually not. Usually I'm having to change it a lot. It's something that gets me in the ballpark, something that gives me a feel for how a real figure would look doing this thing, and then I can build off that. Sometimes I have them wear clothes very similar to what they're wearing, so I see what the hell that looks like. Sometimes it doesn't matter what they're wearing because I'm going to change it all later. Sometimes I have to change the hair completely. Sometimes I have to make them look older or younger or totally different or whatever. But I love working with models and I love using real life reference, and I think it gives a quality that's very hard to capture just doing it off your imagination. Especially, like I said, if you're really trying to get into the micro things about a real human being. Little things they're doing with their hands while they're talking, little things their face is doing, little things the way they're holding themselves, how tightly they're crossing their arms, or where they're fidgeting and stuff like that. There's a lot of conversation in comics about talking heads. I sometimes get a little exasperated with it because to me, like talking head is often brought up for people who are unfamiliar with that term, this idea of like, it's just people going back and forth talking and there's not a lot happening. And it's always pejorative. It's like, it's boring. It's not it, you know, there's something that's bad. Like you want to avoid talking heads. I get exasperated with that. I think when people talk about talking heads in that way, it's kind of like when they're talking about toupees. Like you're talking about the bad examples. There are good examples. And I don't think enough room and time is given to like, no, you can, it's all just about, maybe it's harder to make a talking head page work, but it can work. It's just now on you to make it work. Your facial expressions have to be on. Your hand and body language acting, kung fu has to be righteous. Like it's just, you need to be better. If you're doing a good job, you can do it. If you're not, and not to disparage the Marvel way, but if you're drawing things like the fucking Marvel way, and everyone kind of looks the same, and everyone is like kind of got a static expression, yeah, that's going to be boring. Like that's not going to work. But if you are spending the time and you're drawing well, and you're like me, and you love life drawing and figure drawing and portrait drawing, you can make it work. And a talking head page can actually be more revelatory and more interesting than a lot of like Superman then punched him out pages, in my opinion. So anyway, but yeah, more on like, oh, last thought on the references. If you are interested in actual real life footage of me working with a live model, go into my videos. In the 97 playlist, there is a video on working with reference. And you see me taking pictures of my friend Kevin, who stood in for a lot of the aliens in DvsM 1997. So you'll see him with like a cardboard poster tube that was representing like an alien weapon, and he's like, you know, he's like making like I'm directing him like, okay, now do this, now you see something over here, now you're aiming the thing here, like whatever. You'll see kind of what it looks like. There's no audio, I'm talking over it, but it's talking about reference, it's talking about like different art topics while you watch that happen. I would encourage you to seek that out. You'll see a little bit of what it looks like when I'm actually spending time with someone in the same room, taking pictures to use to draw later. Let's see here. Without talking heads, it'd be a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's, and also, you know, I don't know how to phrase it. DvsM is a very, it's character drama. Yeah, it's sci-fi. Yeah, it's horror, but it's hard. It's character study. It's character drama. That's people talking. You know, and I used to tease, like some of the people who have sometimes been critical of talking heads are the Making Comic guys, who I love. I love both those guys. I've been on that show lots of times, and I've pushed back on them in a like a, you know, a good-natured way where like you're overstating the negative aspects of talking heads. But I used to joke, it's like, you know, you can picture someone watching Silence of the Lambs between like Clarice and Hannibal going back and forth. And like some, you know, comic book nerd from The Simpsons being like, ugh, talking head panel, you know? So what? Like, in all things with art, it's all about execution. There is no thing that you never do. There is no thing that you always do. It's execution. Period. It's execution. Any idea can be done well or poorly. Period. So, anyway. Let's see here. Be wary of people who have rules, like weird rules, like this is how you set up a page. I was hearing somebody talk the other day about like every this many pages, there needs to be an action beat. fuck you. Why are you putting nonsense like that out there? Who wrote that? Is that from Plato? I doubt it. Like, what are you talking about? Just rules. People making cages for people to live in. It's crazy. I don't understand it. Obviously, it works me up. I just hate that kind of nonsense. People like, this is the secret. This is the recipe to make something. Shut up. There's math. Everything else can be argued about. Let's see here. Q16. Let's see here. Do you research on UFO accounts for the comics? Thoughts and feelings on Coast to Coast AM? I liked this question. Yes, I do. I'm not going to claim to be any kind of an expert. I have a variety of books on the subject. I see a new one that's sort of interesting. I'll grab it, read it. I'm not a slave to it. Like, I have my idea of what's going on in DvsM, my story. So sometimes I'm taking like existing UFO lore and accounts and everything, dismissing some of it as like, no, in my story, that's all not true. That's all fake. Other things, like, for example, the Phoenix Light craft, I'm like, yes, we're accepting that that's a thing, you know? So, but I do like to try and weave that in. Every DvsM has some sort of nod to UFO lore. So I am aware of it. And I try, the goal, the ideal would be to have some grand unifying theory of UFO lore in DvsM, or how it all fits together. That's not what I'm actually doing. Some stuff I'm out of hand dismissing. For example, something I talked about in the Ruben Garcia character analysis, this idea that Men in Black are sort of these high-tech trans-dimensional weirdos. Like, I threw all that out. Men in Black are just people, government employees. Like, that's, so there's some things where it's like, nope, I'm not doing that. But other things I'm like, yeah, I'm doing that. Let's see here. Oh, and then Coast to Coast AM, I have to admit, I didn't even know it was still a thing. I used to listen to it just as like good fun back in like the Art Bell days, like when I was in college and shortly after. I thought when he died, I assumed Coast to Coast was like gone. I guess it's still a thing. So I have listened to Coast to Coast, not in a long time. I actually have, and I think Art Bell got a shout out in DvsM 1997 for that reason. But I actually have an alien story, a UFO story. See you later, Ronnie. I'm glad you were able to come by. I actually have a little UFO, little alien story that I've been dying to tell publicly for years, decades really. And I'm holding off because I'm waiting for someone who was involved in it, who's a dear friend of mine, to retire, because I don't want this person, if God forbid, like this story went viral or something, I wouldn't want her to get bombarded with calls from like UFO weirdos at her work, like having questions about. So like, I'm kind of waiting for like, like, okay, now I can finally tell the story, but it's a good one. It's a good one, guys. Who's your favorite inker? I made notes on this because I didn't want to leave anybody out. And it's kind of like favorite movie, favorite video game, like all that stuff where it's really hard to pick. But some I've mentioned before, like Al Williamson is very old school. I like a lot of old school inkers. Al Williamson is one of my all-time favorites. Hal Foster is one of my all-time favorites. Bernie Wrightson, of course. Like, if you love kind of crazy inks, like you kind of have to mention Bernie Wrightson somewhere in there. Brian Bolland, I think that's how you say his last name. he was like a Judge Dredd inker for a long, like the Judge Dredd inker for a long time. I pre-ordered his basically there's an artist edition of his Judge Dredd work. It's like the Apex edition or something like that, which I think comes out next month. I'm so excited. So he's one. I'm never 100% sure how to pronounce his name, Mike Mignola or Mignola. I don't know how you pronounce his name, but you got to mention him. And then last but not least, and I almost put him in a different category of inker because he's like a Martian. I don't even understand how he's doing what he's doing. It's just so amazing. Is Charlie Burns. I have the artist edition of Black Hole. And in a lot of artist editions, you open them up and you see the original scale that they were working at. And you see all these corrections, all this whiteout, all these little patches and fixes and tweaks. And you don't appreciate the work any less. But it's a little more okay, so he's not a god. There are little mistakes here and there. Not so with Charlie Burns. I have the artist edition for Black Hole. This stuff's immaculate. I don't know. This guy's a maniac. It's astonishing. I feel like Salieri in Amadeus, where he's seeing Mozart's first and only drafts of finished pieces, and he just can't even wrap his brain around it. That's how it's, to me, looking at Charlie Burns' things. So anyway, let's see here. Q18. We're nearing the end here, guys. Is your alien language based on a cipher? Is it something particularly tenacious individuals might be able to decode? Okay, so in DvsM, there are two non-English languages. There is a cipher language that you'll see on the cover and in a lot of the pre and post story pages. Not the story itself, but you'll see on the copyright page and stuff like that, you'll see weird code language. That represents coded communication from shadowy government agencies. Okay, that's what that is. There's also the alien language. Whenever the entities in the DvsM comics have dialogue of some kind, it's this untranslated language. That's a distinct thing. That's their language. Which will never be translated. I think it's very important for various reasons, and maybe down the road I'll talk more about the role the aliens play in the DvsM thing. But you'll never know what they're saying, because I think they should always be a little mysterious. You should never get they're always a little bit of an enigma. Okay. Neither one is gibberish. Both, there is a system to both. I can translate, and can and do translate both. I write whatever is being said and I translate it, whether it's to the government code or the alien language. Could someone, if they were really I'm going to figure out what all this says, could they figure it out? Yeah, they could. I think they would have an easier time with the government cipher, which is more of a simple substitution code. The alien language, I think, would be kind of a handful, because I'm doing a lot of weird things to it, and I'm actually putting an extra layer of complexity into it to make it inscrutable. For the reasons I said, I want the aliens to be inscrutable. So if someone learned oh, this is the trick, this is how you translate it, and they could now suddenly read everything the aliens were saying all the time, I wouldn't love that. That's a possibility, because it is an actual language that I've kind of come up with, but I would prefer they didn't. the code, like I always assumed someone, in fact, in the coloring book, way back in the day when I had the DvsM coloring book, as just sort of a challenge, I posted like a large block of the government ciphertext and said, whoever can translate this wins something. And no one ever did. So like I kind of wanted to see if anyone would eventually start to rough out like what the cipher says. The alien language, I think people would have a tough time because I'm doing a lot of weird stuff to it and kind of running it through a filter a few times, and it's a little strange. Is it like The Arrival? When you translate it, it changes your brain? Yes. Yes. By the way, The Arrival, props to you for shouting out The Arrival. One of my favorite sci-fi movies of all time. Really, really, really good. So good. Okay. Let's see here. Getting to the bottom of the list here, guys. Q19. Here's Jenny. Jenny is the protagonist, the infamous protagonist of DvsM 1997, who had a ambiguous ending. And I'm not going to tell you where Jenny is. Jenny is somewhere. Maybe someday you'll know, but not today. Okay. Finally, look how he came out. I didn't even plan this. An even 20 questions. DvsM, the movie. Who would you cast? I love this stuff. First of all, it wouldn't be a movie. I think it would be a series, like an anthology series. So what I did is I started like just Googling actors and actresses, picking them out for different reasons. Like, yeah, maybe someone like this, someone like this. And to keep it straight, I wanted to be able to show you guys images. So you can get a sense of where my head is with this. So I'm going to be sharing a brief slideshow I made of the cast of the first 3 episodes of DvsM, the series, premiering on HBO Max, probably never. The first 3, which will represent DvsM 75, DvsM 97, and the one I'm working on right now, DvsM 79. So let's see. This is the first time I'm going to try sharing this. Share. Screen. Window. Microsoft PowerPoint. Here. Oh, Chrome needs permission to capture my screen. Okay. Let's do this here. Let's try this again. Okay. I gotta do a little system preference thing here. Unlock the screen by selecting the lock button. Okay. Okay. Oh. Oh, no. Okay. It's telling me it won't be able to let me do this until I reboot Chrome, which is what I'm in right now. So what I'm going to do is just for like a minute, pop out of the stream, and I'll be right back. We'll see how this works. Bear with me here. If for some reason, like I don't know where you'll be, like I don't know if you just wait where you are, I don't know if I'll pop back. If I don't, you might have to go back to like, the YouTube main page and see like a new live stream. I don't know. I don't know how that's, actually, you know what? I'm not inclined to do that. I'm not inclined to do that because I'm concerned it will create a new video in YouTube. Let me see here. Can I leave and come back onto the same vid? Is that a possibility? We're gonna have to try it. This will be an experiment. Worst case scenario, there'll be 2 videos for today. We'll see what happens. So I will be right back, okay? Let's see here. I'm gonna close this, I'm gonna be right back. Bear with me.